shouldn't assume that because Labour have advanced ahead of Reform, that this is evidence that Andy Burnham has had a particular success in winning back Reform voters. Actually, what's going on, it's been disappointed 2024 Labour voters who had said they're going to vote for the Greens, or in some cases Liberal Democrats. They are the folk who, above all, have come back during the course of Mr. Burnham's fortnight as Prime Minister.
From one legend to another, we are joined by the legendary pollster, Sir John Curtice. Good morning, John.
Good morning to you.
There's a wonderful, detailed and actually quite bouncy article in the Times this morning about the Andy Burnham bounce, who appears to be doing very well in the polls. Labour were looking good at the beginning of the week, and they're ending the week at least on parity with Reform within that margin of error. But one of the most eye-catching graphs that is in this Times article this morning is the personal approval rating of Andy Burnham since he's come on the scene. And the pollsters have been cruel enough to leave in Sir Keir Starmer poll rating. So at the moment, you've got Andy Burnham on +8, Kemi Badenoch on -4, Ed Davey on -7, Zach Polanski on -19, Nigel Farage, who I'm sure we will be discussing very shortly, on -27, and poor old Sir Keir Starmer still on -42. What has struck you as being the most interesting thing that you've seen in the polls this week about Labour under Andy Burnham?
Well, I think there are, in a sense, there are two slightly different ways of looking at it. So obviously the clear top-line headline is that Labour, indeed, I think on average now in the polls, if you take all the polls that have been done in the last week, and there have been no less than 6 different countries who have polled, Labour are actually 2 points ahead of Reform. So the immediate apparent headline is that Andy Burnham has done damage to Reform. However, if you actually look at whose support's been going up and going down, particularly since the Andy Burnham entered 10 Downing Street, nearly a fortnight ago, it's actually the Greens particularly, and also the Liberal Democrats who've lost out. They're both down by 2 points over the course of the last fortnight, and in the case of the Greens, they're down by 4 points. I think the fact that Labour are ahead of Reform at the end of the day, yes, it's in part, of course, it's Labour's advance, but it's an advance not primarily at the expense of Reform. It's also to do with the fact that entirely independently of developments inside the Labour Party and the replacement of Keir Starmer with Andy Burnham, we have also seen Reform hit their own difficulties. And it's very, very clear that before the 7th of July, which is the day on which Nigel Farage announced he was standing down and going to put himself again before the voters of Clacton. That, of course, is a by-election that's currently in process, counting on the 13th of August. Immediately before that, Reform were at 27. In the wake of that, which of course came in the wake of stories not least in the Sunday Times about allegations about the sources of some of both Reform's funding and also of that received personally by Nigel Farage, support for Reform went down to 24, which is where they're still at. So I think the truth is that while, yes, of course, Labour having advanced means that, as it were, Labour MPs who above all feel that the prospect of Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister is something they feel they can't dare contemplate. But we shouldn't assume that because Labour have advanced ahead of Reform, that this is evidence that Andy Burnham has had a particular success in winning back Reform voters. Actually, what's going on, it's been disappointed 2024 Labour voters who had said they're going to vote for the Greens, or in some cases Liberal Democrats. They are the folk who, above all, have come back during the course of Mr. Burnham's fortnight as Prime Minister.
What do you make of his extraordinary current personal popularity? Because it's rare enough to get any party leader who's got a positive poll rating. He's on +8 and he's in the job.
Yeah, though I think we should also acknowledge, however, that, Kemi Badenoch is now also very clearly outputting her party. Although, again, we should also say, not least in the as a result of the decline in support for Reform, that the Conservatives have got themselves to 20%. That may not sound like very much, but it's the highest they have been now for a year. So the Tories are also profiting from Reform's difficulties. So both of them are actually, in a sense, more popular than their parties, because even Labour with the Burnham bounce, they are still only at 26%. That's 9 points down on what Keir Starmer achieved. But yeah, I think it's an indication. Sure, look, Mr. Burnham has used his first fortnight politically very, very astutely. Some relatively inexpensive attempts to address the cost of living question, a lot of signalling of concern about that. Then we've heard more this week about two more substantial challenges, social care, and about how devolution is going to turn around the economy. That, of course, is going to be a very substantial challenge. So he set out an agenda. And, of course, one of the complaints of the public, let alone Labour MPs, about Keir Starmer was no sense of direction. What's his vision? Where is he trying to go? Andy Burnham has clearly been able to address that. Of course, the difficult bit is now to come.
Well,
Where's the money going to come from? Is the economic growth going to arrive? Are the health service waiting lists going to come down? And at the end of the day, it's being able to deliver on substance rather than just simply signalling symbolism upon which the Labour government's eventual fate will rest.
I am both speculating and hypothesising here, but I wonder if we will see this moment in the polls as the point at which people stopped leeching their support towards protest parties. Perhaps you could say the Greens might be seen as one of them, Reform, Restore and the like, and start moving back towards the centre, because you've finally got two people, certainly in Kemi Badenoch and Andy Burnham, who are popular with the voters, who are now going to start slugging it out with the mainstream politics behind them. We talked about the voting landscape having changed beyond belief, but 5 parties all in the running. Do you think that this may be the direction of travel going forward as the result of Burnham taking the hot seat?
Might, with a capital M, is the answer to your question. Just bear in mind that between them still, Labour and the Conservatives have got the support of 46% of those who express a voting intention. It's still less than half, but certainly one of the contingent factors that underlies the challenge to Conservative Labour. And there are plenty of structural factors, not least the fact that the Conservatives no longer command the middle class and Labour no longer command the working class. That our politics are now not just about arguments about left and right, it's also about culture wars issues, and that hasn't changed overnight. But certainly one of the contingent factors was the fact that at the one end we had Nigel Farage, highly charismatic, effective politician, very much a Marmite politician, but certainly, again, associated with recent events and stories, his popularity has actually now it's the lowest it's been at any point since he returned as Reform's leader. Zach Polanski, he's had his own difficulties, and his popularity has gone down somewhat. And yes, conversely, both Kemi Badenoch and Andy Burnham are now proving to be politically more successful. And those contingent factors do potentially matter. That said, I would just say to you, don't assume that Reform and Green are just simply a protest vote.
No, sorry, I was probably being a little unfair.
In both cases, they are reflecting the views of very distinct sections of the electorate. And shall we say, while I can well envisage Reform support going down, I don't think it's going to disappear, because it's a very, very ideologically distinct set of our society. These are the folk who are really concerned about immigration.
Indeed.
Really
well, I'm so sorry, Sir John. We're going to have to leave it there. I've always wanted to interview Sir John Curtice. Now I have, and he didn't disappoint. That's Sir John Curtice, the legendary polling expert and Professor of Politics at Strathclyde University. Sorry to cut you short, sir, but we have to move on.